Welcome. I'm Julie Thompson, Executive Director of PACTV, and today we're hosting a COVID-19 update for the town of Kingston. We will hold these forums every Tuesday and Friday mornings at 10:30. Watch in Kingston on Comcast Channel 15 and Verizon Channel 42, or watch online on our streaming channel by visiting pactv.org/live. To ask questions during the forum, email them to kingstoninfo@pactv.org. Again, that's kingstoninfo@pactv.org. For the forum replay schedule and additional Kingston meeting coverage, please visit pactv.org/Kingston. I'm going to turn this over to Josh Warren, who is the head of the Board of Selectmen in Kingston, to introduce today's guests. Good morning, Josh.
Morning, Julie. Thank you, and thanks again to everybody at PACTV for continuing to support our efforts to communicate with residents. I know you guys have your hands full working with a number of towns, and we certainly are appreciating everything that you do here in Kingston. So today, headed into the weekend, we decided that we would take a step back from bringing on Kingston department heads and members of the emergency management team to speak specifically about Kingston's response to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. And we wanted to focus more on health and wellness headed into the weekend and hopefully give viewers some information that may be helpful as the days turn into weeks and the weeks potentially turn into months. So with us today, we have Dr. Nicole Wood. We have Reverend Monica Jacobsen-Tennesen. I wanted to make sure I got that correct and didn't confuse the hyphenation. And Amy Burns, who's a licensed social worker and works in the Duxbury Public School System. And they're going to talk to us about how we can keep ourselves healthy, take care of our emotional well-being, and also take care of our children. Anybody who's at home with children knows that with kids out of school and children out of daycare, there's a tremendous amount of stress and anxiety that they're feeling given all of the uncertainty that we're also experiencing. So I look forward to speaking with all three of our guests today. Before we get started, I just wanted to remind you that these PACTV COVID-19 updates are going to be recorded twice weekly at 10:30 a.m. on Tuesdays and Fridays for the foreseeable future. And I also wanted to just share some news and updates that came through yesterday during our emergency management team meeting. As some residents may have heard, there was a request for emergency medical services 2 days ago that resulted in a possible exposure to COVID-19 for 5 members of the Kingston Fire Department and 2 members of the Kingston Police Department. Acting in an abundance of caution, Kingston's police and fire chiefs treated the possible exposure as a confirmed exposure until the results of the patient's COVID-19 test came back. As a result, all those who responded to the call were quarantined, all equipment and vehicles were disinfected. And just yesterday afternoon, we received confirmation that the patient tested negative for COVID-19, and all 7 of our first responders have been cleared to return to duty. Also yesterday afternoon, the Kingston Council on Aging received a call from a 92-year-old resident who shared that she had received a call from 2 people from the Kingston Council on Aging. When the resident shared the individuals' names, it became clear that they were not staff members at the Council on Aging. Both had previously contacted the council, offering to volunteer, and were informed that at this time, the Council on Aging was adequately staffed to respond to the needs of Kingston's seniors, but they'd be contacted in the future if additional support was needed. The incident certainly raised concerns with staff at the Council on Aging and members of the emergency management team that some residents may be representing themselves as Council on Aging staff, or at least being perceived by some of Kingston's seniors as Council on Aging staff. So just as a reminder to all of our seniors, if you receive a call from somebody saying that they're from the Council on Aging and you don't recognize the caller or the phone number, please hang up and call the Council on Aging at 781-585-0511 to confirm that it is indeed the Council on Aging calling. Please don't give out any personal information or your address without confirming first the call came from the Council on Aging. All COA staff who are working in the community have been given an ID tag that will identify themselves as Council on Aging staff. And all of our staff have also been properly vetted, trained, and given clear safety protocols to follow to support all of our seniors during this ongoing pandemic. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Nicole Wood, who's going to tell us a little bit about telehealth. So we got some questions during the last COVID-19 update regarding telehealth and telemedicine. So I'm looking forward to speaking with you, Nicole, and I think you'll be able to answer some of those questions for residents. Just to jump right into it, what is telehealth?
So telehealth and telemedicine are, telehealth is a more comprehensive, broader term. Telemedicine involves the use of technology to provide services to patients without the in-person visit. So really providing care at a distance. Currently, we are either using the phone or video for these visits. Telehealth is really a more comprehensive term that includes telemedicine, but it also includes non-clinical services, such as providing training for providers, administrative meetings, continuing education. So I think what most people are referring to nowadays would be the telemedicine, which many offices are offering now.
So if a patient would like to access telehealth services, how do they go about doing that?
So really, I would encourage them to call their primary care office or their provider's office if it's their specialist and see what their options are. I can tell you at Partners at Brigham, we are offering both phone services as well as video conferencing. So if a patient does not have a laptop or a computer that has a camera, or if they don't have a smartphone, a simple telephone, and we can do telemedicine visits that way. If there was something that we needed to have an eyes on, then having a video is helpful. That said, I've done many where patients took pictures of things, they emailed them in, I called them back, and we were able to do the visit easily that way.
So is it a pretty broad spectrum of treatment and diagnoses that can be made using telehealth?
So we are expanding what we can do given the situation. So there are many times when I'm talking to patients that I would say, for example, a urine infection. That's something that historically we would want to bring somebody in for. We want to check the urine, but at the same time, we don't want to possibly expose them given what we're dealing with, the COVID crisis. So this is a situation where if we talk to a patient and their symptoms are quite clear, pretty obvious, then we are going ahead and treating over the phone. Some things are much easier to treat over the phone. Sometimes we're using it as a triage where a patient's not sure, we talk to them, and unfortunately, sometimes we do need to bring them in. If it's an abscess that has to be drained, if there are sutures that need to be removed, if someone thinks they've broken an arm and we need to do an x-ray, then there are still things that we have to bring people in for, but we're really trying to treat as much as we can at home so that we are protecting not only the patients, but our staff as well.
Now, will that also, I guess, lessen the strain that medical facilities are feeling right now with just the influx of patients who may be coming in with COVID-related symptoms or seeking treatment for COVID-19?
Right. So with respect to, so I'm going to back up a little bit. Because everything is about COVID right now, I think it's not uncommon. People are forgetting that regular medical issues are still going on. People are still having infections. They're still falling and breaking arms, or so other medical concerns still continue. So for those patients, we have at least in our office, we have a separate section of the building that is designated for patients who are otherwise healthy, that do not have any respiratory symptoms. For those patients who do have respiratory symptoms, we're trying to triage them as much as possible over the phone. So for the vast majority of people who have COVID, it is a minor, mild, cold, upper respiratory illness. Unfortunately, as we all know, there are varying degrees of the illness. And so what we are trying to do as much as possible is if someone has mild symptoms, keeping them at home, keeping them safe so that we are not bringing them into an area where we have patients with similar symptoms. Most people, like I said, can be safely managed at home. if someone were to have severe symptoms, severe shortness of breath, chest pains, things like that, then we don't want to see them either. Those are the ones that need to go to the emergency room if their symptoms are severe. For those patients who are kind of in the middle, that we're really not able to tell over the phone or by looking at them on a video, that's where we really want to be seeing those patients. We might be able to do a chest x-ray, see if it's pneumonia. So it's really, the respiratory clinic is really for those in-between patients, where we really want to try to keep them out of the emergency room, but are not sure if they're safe being at home.
Gotcha. And if somebody is apprehensive to use telehealth services, I mean, it seems like a real change from the traditional doctor's visits. Can you just speak to the efficacy and the safety of telehealth, telemedicine?
That's a big concern for providers as well, because we're now treating over the phone medical issues that we've historically seen in person. So, I can only speak for myself and what advice I'm offering. And I explain to the patient that I'm doing, we're all trying to do our best. We're trying to treat based on the information that they're providing with us and what our medical knowledge is leading us to believe is the accurate diagnosis. But then I also do try to tell them that an over the phone diagnosis is limited. So if the medication that I'm prescribing isn't helping within a certain amount of time, then I want them to call back or reach out in some way so that we can reevaluate and either go to plan B, or maybe then I do need to bring them in. So it's not comfortable 100%, I think, for any of us, because this is really all new to us. But at the same time, I think most of us who've been doing this a long time in terms of caring for patients can feel quite confident based on their symptoms and our plan. And as long as they're reliable and following up if it's not working out, I think we're all just trying to do our best to keep people healthy and keep them safe at home.
And telehealth services, are they covered by private healthcare insurance?
That's a great question. So this is not my area of expertise, and this is one of those other areas that is changing every single day. I can tell you what we've been informed: most private healthcare insurers, as well as Medicare and Medicaid, are covering your follow-up, your routine, your question, problem-based visits, whether it be a phone call or video. Physical exams are not being, so your routine physical exams, many insurance companies are not covering those. So we have taken, and that involves truly a physical exam. So I can tell you that the Brigham and Partners, we've canceled all of our routine physical exams. In terms of a Medicare wellness visit, those can be conducted remotely, but they do require a video piece of it at this time. So we're trying to really use telemedicine more for the problem-based visits, follow-up. We're doing a lot of mental health over the phone now. If a patient has a blood pressure monitor or a blood sugar machine, we can follow up on their hypertension or diabetes with that. So there's actually quite a bit we can do, especially in a time where many people are anxious. So we can help with that over the phone. And yes, most insurances are covering most of these. If you have a question, though, I would encourage you to reach out to your specific insurance or to your provider.
Great. I appreciate that, and certainly appreciate you coming on to speak with us today. I'm just going to change gears and ask a couple questions to you, Amy. And I know you're on here to talk to us about how we can support our children and how this is impacting young people. With a 5-year-old at home right now, I can certainly see that I'm not able to give him all the attention that he wants or needs, because we're doing things like this for Kingston and trying to juggle full-time jobs from home. So I think this is certainly going to impact every family differently, every child differently. But can you just speak broadly to how events like this impact young people?
Sure. Well, first of all, it is a very big deal. So I think we have to honor that and just know that things are different. We're going to act different. The kids are going to act different. They're going to be confused. They're going to ask questions. For younger kids, they do really well with kind of concrete answers, kind of short and sweet. Like, there's doctors working on this, and there's scientists working on this, and they're giving the information to us, and we're learning every day, and we're going to work together, kind of short and sweet. The older kids, they're certainly impacted, I think, even more, because I mean they're social beings, and the whole social world for them has kind of come to a screeching halt. um, I liken it to grief. I mean, essentially, we are all grieving. So kids, at different age levels, are going to deal with it differently, and we will as well.
Thanks, and I'm glad you mentioned that too, with younger children trying to make sense of this and giving really concrete answers. Not too long ago, my son asked if something like this happened when I was his age,
Mhm.
and I sort of paused and said, this really hasn't happened in anybody's lifetime. Anybody who's living hasn't experienced anything like this, um, and I was a little concerned that that level of uh, the unknown would be scary to him, but he seemed to understand it, and at least a concrete answer like that was something that he was able to receive,
Yeah.
process, and then move on to Legos or whatever it was that we were doing.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, the younger kids, they can switch gears quicker.
yeah,
They kind of take your answer and they move along, and they're definitely responding to us. So if we're seeming super anxious, or if in the moment we're super anxious, then they will feed off of that. But I think it's also okay to let kids know that we're confused. Like, as adults, yeah, this is really a little bit scary, and we're going to work together, and it's all going to be okay. It will end.
and for a pandemic like this or any sort of event like this, how much is too much information to be sharing with kids about what's going on in the world?
Yeah, I think, again, for younger kids, it really has to be short and sweet. We don't want to worry them too much. There's actually a fantastic social story online, by Carol Gray, um, and it's just really well done, because it's very, pointed story, and very good and concrete for the younger kids. And for the older kids, I mean, the conversations are just going to be ongoing. They may not want to talk about it one moment, and then in the next hour, they have a bazillion questions about it, because it's history in the making. And I think that them knowing that, and kind of maybe journaling, or as a family you kind of somehow track, how everybody's doing, how everybody's feeling, what's going on. They can have really cool conversations about it, and we're going through it together. Everybody, every single person in the whole world, we're going through this together.
So, I mean, we're all creatures of habit, and with daycare centers closed and with schools being disrupted for the foreseeable future, how important is it for us to help our children create new routines and new schedules?
Yeah, I mean, I think having a schedule is extremely healthy, and helpful. Again, kids are creatures of habit, and they do, thrive in structure. So that will look different for different families. I mean, I think you have to do what you can do, because so many families are still working. There are people that are nurses and doctors leaving the home. So you, um, just really want to do what you can do, but within, a structure. So in my family, we read every single morning. We do academics. We do a mile walk each day. So somehow, some way, if you have a schedule, also just making sure the kids get up and get dressed. Simple things like that. We don't want to just kind of stay in our pajamas, because that just, isn't as healthy. But having somewhat of a routine throughout your day is really, really helpful for all kids.
And are there any specific ways that we can help children cope with the stress and anxiety that this is creating?
Yeah, I mean, I could talk about this for hours, but
We'll have you back.
but again, for the younger kids, excuse me, I think for the younger kids, they're really gonna, they will gobble up anything that you come up with that is, kind of cool and different. So, for example, making like a worry box where they can write down their worries and put it in the box. They can bounce back pretty quick. They definitely will worry, and they'll have questions, but they don't hang on to it. Older kids, they worry. especially about the social stuff, that when are we going to have a graduation? Are we going back to school? Like, that is the grief. They're going to be angry. They're going to be upset. They're going to be in denial about some of it. So it's tricky, but I think with the older students, you really just want to have ongoing conversations. I can give some websites that maybe we can put on the um, website.
Sure.
But yeah, just keeping the conversation going with the older kids is definitely going to be helpful.
And I think my last question for you may pertain more to the older kids. Is there a way to support our children in maintaining their relationships with friends while also adhering to social distancing guidelines and stay-at-home advisories?
Yeah, I mean, I think the message we have to send is that we just have to do this, and it's not going to be forever. It's just going to be for right now, but this is what we have to do. And technology is incredible. I mean, there's already things that are happening. There's the drive-by parties, and kids are zooming, and they're doing the Netflix. They're watching movies and doing hangouts on Netflix. So I think kids are being really creative, and they are connecting. It's just different. It's not in person. We can't give each other hugs. We can't get close to each other, but we can still maintain those relationships. And I think one of the other things that is happening is that there are benefits to this. People are being home. They're having dinner at the table every night. They're watching movies as a family, board games, going outside. Those things are super, super healthy for young people. And those are things we've gotten away from a little bit. So kind of just reminding younger kids that those things are really beneficial.
Thank you, Amy. Before we move over to you, Monica, Julie, I believe, has a question or two.
Great.
Question that came in, Josh, it's quite interesting. This whole sense of isolation, maybe that we're at now, came in stages where it didn't all of a sudden one day, everybody stay home and that's it, and only essential people can go to work. It kind of happened gradually. The reverse of that. So what if there's a date given and all of a sudden you're free to go outside? What kind of tips or hints can you give for parents, for teachers, for coaches, when all of this all of a sudden is released? And do you think that's a great idea? I don't know who wants to field that one.
I would just say that you have to go slowly, and you have to go based on your own kind of comfort level. I think that we as humans, we tend to think about what if so much, and the what ifs are things that fuel our fear. So trying to be very concrete and control the things that we can control. So if you're ready to go maybe to one store, just do that and come home. And if it makes you feel better to kind of wash your hands and regroup for another couple days and not go out. I don't know. It's we'll have to see how it goes. I think we're all a little bit worried about that because we haven't had that happen yet.
And Nicole, I'm wondering if there's a response from the medical side as well. This has come in stages with the stay-at-home advisories, and we've seen some countries where it's not an advisory; it's a mandate. They're being required to stay indoors. When this comes to a head, or when this ends rather, do you see this as being one day we all open up our doors and we can go back to the things that we've enjoyed doing for our entire lives? Or do you think that this is something that will sort of happen in stages, and as Amy said, it really will be at everybody's own pace, to everybody's own comfort level?
So I think that's a great question. I think the short answer is we don't know. This is not going to just end. So it's not going to be where all of a sudden there is no COVID anymore. So, I think it's one of those where when they are starting to loosen the bands, you have to make the decision that feels, like Amy was saying, that's right for you. Initially, this disease, this virus, was felt to only attack a certain either age population or if patients had significant comorbidities. However, we are learning that there are healthy young individuals adults, I should say, who are getting this. So I I would say if you are in that high risk category, I would take extra caution even when they do lift the ban. I can't see that they're just going to all of a sudden open everything up and then we all go back to our normal lives, because then we're just going to see another spike again. So I would just encourage patients, people, everyone to use caution according to what their medical concerns are. And like Amy said, continuing your good hand washing, trying not to be touching your face as much, goes a long way.
Julie, thank you for that and for relaying the question. I want to make sure that we have plenty of time to speak with Reverend Monica Jacobsen-Tennesen. She and I spent some time on the phone earlier during the pandemic, and I found it to be very beneficial. Monica, Amy had mentioned a few times that we're social beings, and sometimes we need hugs. How do we find human connection at a time when that's being taken away from us, and for our own health? Where do we go to fill that void? When social distancing and stay-at-home orders or advisories are preventing us from socializing, and quite frankly, now is probably when we need to be hugging more than ever.
Yeah, absolutely. We not only are we intensely social creatures, we're creatures who are wired to get comfort from being near and touching people that we care about. And as silly as it sounds, if you can video chat someone you care about and you each hug yourselves on camera, you will feel a little bit better. Because not only are we intensely social, we are also intensely visual creatures. So seeing each other, if you hold hands and you watch each other do that, if you hug and you watch each other do that, I mean, not just for kids, anybody of any age, that is something that will help you feel more connected. And another thing, again, like tapping into how visual we are as a species, if you have any kind of prayer practice and you're praying for people that you love, you can be picturing them in your mind. Try to picture them as vividly as you can. If that's not part of your practice, it's as simple as just sitting, closing your eyes, picturing those people, and then just feeling the love that you feel for them. And later you can send them a text and say, I sent you some love today. I was thinking about you and how much I miss you and how much I'm looking forward to being together again when it's safer to do so. You can even set up, I have a friend who has set up specific times a day. She's like, at noon every day, I think of you. And at 1 p.m. every day, I think of this person. And at 2 p.m., I think of this person. And I think that's a beautiful way to keep those connections alive for you, whether or not you're able to get on Zoom or Skype or FaceTime or whatever with each other, just to stop and picture each other and feel that connection.
And I think also letting the recipient of those thoughts know. I mean, I think for a lot of folks who may live at home or who are socially isolated, even at times when it's not a global pandemic, just knowing that somebody's thinking of you, every day at noon or every day at 1 probably goes a long way in terms of helping them cope and helping them make sense of what's going on in the world.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. It's a great time to reach out to each other. Amy was talking about the benefits to folks with especially young children at home, that there is more family time happening as our busy routines have been set aside. And I'm hearing from folks, they're saying, oh, I called my high school friend who I haven't talked to in 10 years, and it was so great to reconnect. Or, I play games online with my college buddy who lives in another state, and it's so great. And our kids are connecting and we're getting to catch up with each other. I think there really are some benefits to being very intentional about using this time to lean into our relationships and to say, I'm here, I'm thinking of you. I want us to be really checking in on a regular basis and supporting each other.
Thank you. And can you recommend any mindfulness strategies or techniques for residents who are experiencing, the stress and anxiety? I think, if we were all totally honest with each other, would all, admit that, yes, we're stressed. Yes, we're anxious. Yes, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah, I think the number one thing is to say, whatever kind of mindfulness practice you have or you might be starting, be really, really gentle with yourself about your expectations, because we are all surfing these incredible waves of I'm okay, I got this, and oh no, it's terrible, and I'm so afraid and I can't get out of bed, and now I feel okay again, and I'm going to plant a garden, and oh no, today I can't even take a shower. All of us are up and down and up and down. And if you have a meditation practice, there's a lot of focus on like trying to be steady and find your equanimity, and like that's totally the goal, but equanimity is going to be elusive for most of us right now. So I really recommend picking up a guided meditation app, something that you can do on the computer or on your smartphone, where you are listening to someone guide you through visualizing something or following your breath, because your mind is going to be really distractible right now. And that's okay. That's not any kind of flaw in you. It's that we are living in incredibly stressful times. And again, like biologically, what we're wired to do as creatures is pay attention to things that are threats. But everything feels like a threat right now, right? Like, is the grocery store dangerous? I turn on the news and like things look awful, right? So just know that you're going to be fragmented like that. You can try the Calm app is a good one. The Headspace app is a good one. You can ask around in your social network and see what people are using. But there's a lot of different tools out there for you, so that you put in your earbuds and you just sit for, 5, 10, 15 minutes and follow your breath and visualize, a mountain or a lake, and just see what that does to help settle you a little bit. And you can do it as many times a day as it sounds good. The Calm app also has what they call sleep stories, which are excellent if you're having trouble falling asleep at night. They have them for kids and for adults. And they are basically stories read to you in a very soothing voice. Some of them are even like kind of like exactly the kind of thing that's meant to lull you to sleep. And that's just a way to help you turn off the constant chatter of your brain and start to settle down. So I listened to one that's about sailing on a boat along the Canadian coastline, and the narrator's just like, and then you see the little birds, and these are all the kinds of birds on this island. And I'm like, oh, good. I'm thinking about birds now. That's great. And it does really help to settle down. So anything like that is great. The other thing I want to say is, if you feel yourself really feeling anxious, like in a panic attack kind of way, you want to get grounded in your environment. So you want to look around for things that you can touch. You want to name for yourself things you can smell, things you can hear. If you have a little bit of like dark chocolate or a hard candy that you can suck on and really focus on that sensation. All of these practices are about trying to get back to the present moment, instead of being, as Amy was saying, in like the what ifs, or maybe it was Nicole, I forget. It was somebody said, we live in a lot of what ifs, and trying to get out of the what ifs and being like, I'm here right now. This is what I'm really experiencing in this moment. And that's all that I really know, is what's happening right this moment.
Thanks. And Amy talked about, one of the silver linings being, it's forced family time. I mean, it's an opportunity for us to reconnect, unplug. I know a lot of folks are doing puzzles right now and playing board games. Sort of on a larger level, do you see any way that this can strengthen our community or help us build connections to other people outside of our homes? Are there other silver linings that we can find, in the face of, some pretty dire headlines every day?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big part of the emotional waves, is that in a crisis like this, everything is heightened. So, we're feeling a lot of heightened fear. We're grieving things that were canceled. We're feeling anticipatory grief. And at the same time, a lot of people are becoming very creative and very generous with that creativity. So every time you go online, you can see videos that people recorded from their homes, or art that people have made and shared. You might be making art, and then you also see people reaching out and making these human connections. So my hope is that we come through this time with a renewed sense of appreciation, not only for our relationships with each other, but for our ability to create things that we give to each other, that we paint and we sing and we come up with all kinds of ways to, display art in the windows for people going by. These are such wonderful things to lean into. And they are also a big part of what it means to be human, to be able to connect and to make stuff together. And I think that is one of the strange gifts of this time, that people are creating and sharing.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it back over to Julie. I think a question or two may have come in for the whole group.
Yeah, it's really kind of interesting. And a number of people have talked about this. So we have really another 30 days before the governor has said, it's May 3rd now is the date that we're looking at. So 30 days you can do a lot of things in. You can quit smoking. You can lose 10 pounds. You can learn sign language. You can set a goal for yourself that you might not have ever set before. And hope springs eternal. So when people have a goal that they're reaching for, even if it's a personal goal or if it's maybe one within the family, can you each speak to what would be a really cool or a number of cool ideas for people to do that's outside the box that they might not have done otherwise? Why don't we start with the doctor? Nicole.
That's a great question, and you're absolutely right. You know, smoking cessation, weight loss. The problem is that in the scenario that we're in right now, everyone's anxiety is heightened, and so eating and smoking are for many people a stress reliever. And I don't know about you, but everybody I've talked to is home baking right now. So again, the weight loss piece of it might be a little bit challenging. Now, that said, I think especially as our weather starts to warm up, going outside for some nice walks, social distancing while you're out walking. And what Monica was just saying is that, you know, I treat many patients, many families for anxiety and stressors, and a huge amount of that is because of the volume of stress that we as a society, as parents, put on kids and each other to achieve. And so this is a wonderful pause button in some ways that, like Amy was saying, we can reconnect and play board games. And that goes a long way for reducing that aspect of mental health stressors and anxiety. So really embracing the fact that we all are not overly scheduled anymore, and taking a deep breath and kind of focusing on your own, not only mental, but physical health in any way that works for you.
And how about either Monica or Amy? You want to weigh in on that? Amy?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I think it's really important for us to remember that right now, like, especially, you know, with Facebook, it's kind of like everybody's perfect, always looks perfect. And right now we have to be perfectly imperfect and only do what we can do. So if we have small goals, like maybe we plant some flowers, or maybe we teach our kid how to bake some cookies. But I think at this point in time, the small things are going to go a long way. If we put too much expectations on ourselves to learn a new language or to clean the entire house and every single closet, remember that we are anxious, we are grieving. So, you know, this is a time maybe not to take on anything too huge, but the little things are, you know, the small goals, I think, are going to make us feel really good. They're attainable, and they're going to help us keep a healthy mindset.
And Monica?
Yeah, I just want to say that I think now is a really good time to start a gratitude practice. And the gratitudes can be as small as feels achievable, or they can be huge. So if you are at home with a family member or a whole group of folks, you can do this together at a meal. I know some households where they're keeping just a spiral notebook at the table and they're writing down every day, like, this is the date and these are all the gratitudes we thought of. If you are at home by yourself, you can still write them down. You could email and exchange gratitudes with somebody, but just pausing once a day to say, okay, amidst everything that is hard, here is something that is good. Here's something that I'm grateful for. Here's something that went well. Even just reminding yourself, like, I have a home to shelter in, and I have some food to eat, even if it isn't my favorite kind of food. But it might also be like, yeah, you know, I did do a puzzle with my kids today, and that was really special. And we normally only do that, you know, when we're like out at the cabin for a week in the summer, but now we get to do it every week. Or saying to yourself, like, oh, you know, not only did I get to reconnect with that friend from high school, but like, it was a really beautiful conversation. And I'm so glad that something pushed me to do that. There's a lot of studies that show that even in ideal circumstances, a daily gratitude practice makes a lot of difference to your mental health, to your sense of well-being, and to your physical health. And now is a time when we need help with all those things. So just, try to think of 1, 2, 3 things a day that you can say, yes, that is something I'm grateful for, even if the rest of the day felt awful. Like, that'll make a big difference for you. And 30 days is long enough to start a habit, and you might keep that gratitude practice up for years and years and years to come. And that would be beautiful.
I had one more question, Josh, and it's
Please.
for the parents who have to work from home. They literally have to do their jobs, and they have to now be educators of their kids. How do you balance that? And that a lot of parents are really struggling with that, and they're not teachers, so they're having a hard time with that too. I don't know who wants to go first. Maybe Amy could go first on that one.
Sure. So we talk a lot about that. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. We talk a lot about that with, through this in the schools. And I think it's really important for people to remember that you can only do what you can do. So if you're home working and you have to have kids watch some of the YouTube channels, or they do some of the academics, we just can only do what we can do. I think that there is so much learning that happens through cooking and through playing games and through being outdoors. Even at the kitchen table, you can, kind of quiz kids on certain topics, and that is learning. So, teachers understand that. Teachers are at home right now with their own kids. So it's got to be just an understanding that we can only do what we can do, and what we are doing has to be enough for right now.
That was all we had for the questions today, Josh. So back to you.
Great. And Amy, thank you for that. That certainly makes me feel better as I try to, continue to work full time from home and juggle parenting and also some of those teaching and teachable moments. I'll remember that I can only do what I can do. Any of you have anything else that you'd like to speak to or share? We have a few minutes left. Otherwise, I think the knowledge that you've imparted on viewers is certainly appreciated on this end, and I'm sure everybody who's watching at home appreciates it as well.
I'd just like to add, when we're talking about what we're teaching our children in this time, is not only are we teaching academics and life skills, but we're teaching emotional resilience right now. We're teaching the ability to say, this is what I'm feeling. It's okay to feel it. Like, no feelings are bad, right? We can talk about them in our family. And then to say, in our family, we're helpers, and this is how we are checking in. We're texting our neighbor up the street to see if they need any groceries. We're FaceTiming with the grandparents that we can't see right now. I mean, our kids are learning all kinds of things from us in this time. And part of what they're learning is what it means to be citizens of a community and members of a human family. And I think that's such an incredible gift to be giving them. And so, I bake a cake and we talk about fractions when we're doing it, but mostly I'm saying, look, these are things we can do for each other just to make people feel happy. My daughter and I baked a cake because it made us feel good. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with that being the lesson that she learned, even if she doesn't remember how much 3/4 of a cup is. Okay.
Thank you, Monica. Dr. Nicole Wood, family medicine and medical director at Brigham Health in Pembroke. We had Reverend Monica Jacobsen-Tennesen, who's the minister at the First Parish Church, and Amy Burns, licensed clinical social worker and adjustment counselor in the Duxbury Public School System, with us today. I thank you all so much for taking time out of your busy schedules and your busy lives to really, share your knowledge and your experience with Kingston residents. Before we sign off, I just want to remind all residents that the Kingston website, www.kingstonmass.org, is updated daily with COVID-19 related updates. There is a link on the front page that'll take you to a page specific to the town's response to the pandemic. It's full of resources that are available. And we'll be back on Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. on PACTV for a similar update. So I hope you'll all tune in.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been a really good both physical and emotional health episode today, and I think it's really, really appreciated. For people who want to see this again, please go to pactv.org/Kingston, and it will be right there available for you to watch again. Josh does bring us these updates every Tuesday and Friday at 10:30 in the morning, and usually it's a lot more factual and maybe not as uplifting. This was an incredibly uplifting episode today, and really great ideas from all three guests. Thank you so much. This is Julie Thompson, Executive Director of PACTV, signing off and reminding you to stay safe, be healthy, listen to the people that tell you to wash your hands and social distance, and we will get through this together. Till next time.